Ezra felt like he would explode. He instructed Darren to stay there, call the police, and wait for them and him to get there, his mind in a million places. After frantically driving for what felt like hours, he arrived at Lily's apartment. The police had not arrived yet. Darren was standing outside. When he saw Ezra, his eyes widened with concern and confusion. "I think this is bad, Pastor," he said, pointing to the steps. "There is blood right over there." Fear gripped Ezra like nothing before. He remembered nearly fainting when he'd identified Hannah's body in the morgue. He knew if he had to see Lily's body, he would actually pass out. He just knew he couldn't take that. He couldn't. Ezra's gaze fell to the scarlet smear by the railing, his heart dropping like a stone. Stepping further inside to her living room, the place was bare, as though someone had left in a hurry. A few sheet music pages lay scattered across the floor. One corner of a hymn book bent as if it had been dropped. Then he saw it. His chest tightened as he knelt, fingertips brushing the dried streak of blood. "God, no," he whispered, his pulse thundering. Losing all defenses, he cried without hold right there. With his hand over his head, his shoulders shook. "My Lily, what happened to you, my darling?" The sound of the police sirens had him lifting his head. As if on cue, Ezra received a text. "If you want her alive, come to the old Whitlock warehouse." Alone, his breath stopped when he opened the attached photo. It was Lily, her wrists bound, her face pale but defiant. Behind her, the unmistakable steel beams of the abandoned family property. On the one hand, he was elated that she was alive. On the other hand, rage and fear collided inside him. Victor, of course it was Victor. Ezra felt both guilty and stupid. Victor had already threatened to ruin Lily. He knew Victor was a relentless businessman. Why didn't he take Victor's threat more seriously, especially after discrediting him and his reputation? Ezra suddenly felt like a fool, even more so because it affected Lily. Then, he remembered back when Victor said Lily would finally be taken care of, as if there was more meaning behind her demise than her resignation. Ezra's pulse roared in his ears as he ran out of the house, drove through what was now night, headlights cutting through the fog. By the time the hulking warehouse came into view, his palms were sweat-slicked despite the chill in the air. Inside, the cavernous space echoed with every step. Then, her voice, "Ezra." Lily's muffled cry cracked through the shadows. He spun toward the sound. There she was, tied to a chair beneath the beam of a swinging light bulb. "Let her go, Victor," Ezra thundered. Victor emerged from the shadows, dapper and polished as ever, his smirk cutting sharper than any blade. "Look at you, rushing in like some hero. Predictable. But tell me, little brother, what do you really think you can save her from? You walked away from everything. You're nothing. You never understood our place in this world, Ezra. Father did. I do. Father destroys everything he touches." Ezra spat. Lily felt the pure truth in his words like nothing else. As the two brothers argued, her mind blazed back to nearly 20 years ago, when her dreams were shattered at the hands of a cold, cruel man. She had always carried music like a second heartbeat. Lily grew up with her fingers on ivory keys, her teachers whispering about her gift. By 17, her name was already known in music circles. She was offered a scholarship to one of the most prestigious conservatories in the country, a dream come true. But dreams, she learned, could be twisted. The head donor of the school, Victor Whitlock, had only made a brief appearance for a short funding meeting. That's when he saw her playing softly at a stage piano. Her beauty was striking even then, before she had the looks of a fully grown woman. Her music moved him so, but being that he was a man who lived by taking what he wanted, damn the consequences, he made his expectations clear the same night she was called into his office. A man of wealth and power, his reputation was spotless in the public eye, but the way his hand lingered on her shoulder, the way his smile curved when he spoke, Lily had felt the danger in the air. "All doors can open for you, Miss Moore," he had said smoothly, "if you're willing to show gratitude." Her stomach had turned. She was just 18, young and desperate to play, but she refused to sell her soul for keys and concert halls. Lily walked out that night, a scholarship offer left unsigned on the polished mahogany desk. The door she had dreamed of closed forever. She only regretted the possibility of wondering what could have been, not refusing to sleep with Ezra and Victor's father, Victor Whitlock. She kept playing, though not in the grand halls she once imagined. Churches became her stages. Hymns became her concertos. Music stopped being about ambition and started being about healing, hers and others. Years later, much had changed, like life naturally did. Ezra was happily married to Hannah with children. She was hired as the pianist at New Hope Baptist. She had recognized him when she was hired to play at the church, though he had introduced himself simply as Pastor Ezra Hayes. He was Jester Whitlock's son. She knew because she noticed him in a photograph years ago on the Whitlock donor wall at the conservatory, next to his brother Victor, so she knew exactly who Ezra really was. She never expected to see anyone from that family again, but a job was a job, she told herself. She kept her silence, burying the recognition deep. She never told Ezra she knew his real name, never confessed that she knew exactly the world he had left behind. She really had no reason to. When Hannah died, things changed again. They grew closer, and it only made her think of her past even more. But every time she saw him, she thought of how they were both scarred by Jester Whitlock's corruption. She knew he wasn't evil like his father and brother. Hearing the two men fight brought her back to reality. Barely awake, she wasn't sure what they were yelling about. Had Victor told Ezra how long he had her down there for? She wasn't even sure. Was it days, weeks? Could have been a month or more. All she remembered was Victor scaring her to death in her apartment, fighting him and failing, and Victor knocking her unconscious. She awoke there, and had been for many weeks, barely eating, barely drinking. She didn't get a chance to join a new church. She was thankful Victor hadn't taken advantage of her. He came close one day, but saw that she had an infection from a bite on her arm days ago. Damaged goods, he had said regrettably, fastening his belt back into place. He hadn't tried to touch her since then. Suddenly, she saw a gun appear. Victor produced one quickly and held it in his hand, pointing it at him. Ezra backed away and held his hands up. "Enough of this foolishness," Victor shouted. Ezra watched carefully as Victor walked quickly over to Lily. "Tell him your secret, or I will kill him right now." "It's not a secret, Victor," Lily shouted, finding the strength to glance at Ezra, afraid of what his reaction would be. "It's no secret that your father is a monster." Victor's grin widened. "Did you hear that, little brother? Did you know this lovely pianist once crossed his path?" "Oh yes, sweet Lily Moore, the prodigy. She could have had the world, a scholarship, fame, her name in lights. All she had to do was be cooperative." His eyes darted to Lily's. She looked down, shame flickering across her face. Though she had nothing to be ashamed of, she turned him down. "Of course," Victor continued, circling her like a vulture. "Too moral, too stubborn. So father made sure she had nothing. Her career died before it began. And now look at her, playing hymns for a country church. Pathetic, isn't it? Enough." Ezra's voice shook with fury. "Don't you dare drag her into your filth. She's worth more than the whole Whitlock empire put together." Victor sneered. "Worth enough for you to risk your children, your church, your very name." He shoved Lily's chair toward the edge of a platform, the floor below littered with jagged glass and rusted beams. "Then prove it. Save her, little brother." The chair tilted. Lily's scream split the air. Ezra lunged, grabbing hold before it toppled. With a roar, he dragged her back, ripping the ropes with a shard of metal. Lily collapsed into his arms, gasping, trembling. Victor advanced, but Ezra rose, positioning himself between his brother and Lily. "You had money, Victor. You had power, but you never had love. That's why you'll always lose." It was true. Victor never married. He always treated women less than, and was abusive to any who stayed with him long enough. For the first time, Victor faltered, anger flashing in his eyes before he turned and stormed into the shadows, his footsteps fading into the hollow dark. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Part 6 concludes the saga.